is the first week of December, and it's the beginning of Advent, which is also a season in which we're going to do just a little bit of like family business. So if you're new around here, or if you haven't decided Redemption Hill is like your forever home and you're just kind of checking stuff out, you get a little peek into our family business this morning, which isn't a bad thing. We want you to see what we're up to. And it's also a time of year where every December we look forward to January, and we do what we call our budgeting season. Everybody loves budgeting season, right? Everybody loves this time of year when we look at reports from last year and decide how much we're going to spend next year after we pay off our, Christmas bills and all that. But what we do around here is that in December we talk about it, and then in January we implement it. And so what we're going to do is today I'm going to share a little bit about what's happening around Redemption Hill, who we are, what we're doing. Next week we're going to walk through our budget. We're going to walk through what we spent last year. We're going to look through what we're going to spend next year and what we're hoping to spend. And we base our budget off of what you commit to us. And so what we're going to do is for 2 weeks from next week until Christmas Eve, we're going to challenge you to pray as a family. Sit down and write down a number that you will say, by God's grace, we are going to commit to giving this much over the next year. Now, nobody checks that number. Nobody is going to show up at your house and make sure that you give that much next year. That's just between you and God. But what it does is it helps us to make a budget. And it helps us to know here's what we can plan on for the next year. And if anything more than that comes in, that's just a blessing that we can give away to our community. And so that's the work that you are called to in this season, is to talk to God about what you are called to give, and then we're going to build our budget on it. You should have gotten an email last night where we just hit this automated button, and it sends out a report to you from our giving system that says, here's what you gave last year, here's what you committed last year, and here's where you're at in your giving. So we wanted to give you an update on where you're at and where we're at as a community. And this week is about who we are as a people. And I want to share with you a couple things. So first of all, who are we? Well, Redemption Hill exists to learn the way of Jesus as a community of friends, to bless the city that we love so much. This is why we exist. We are learning the way of Jesus. That's why we exist, is to become people who have been formed and shaped in his way. That includes all of the things. It includes understanding salvation. It includes experiencing redemption. It includes transformation in the way of Jesus, and it includes participating in the call of Jesus in our lives. And so we are learning the way of Jesus. We don't do it as individuals. We're actually not called to do it as individuals. We're called to do it as a community of people who have been called to God, called the church. The church actually means the called out ones who've been called into his family. And so we are a community of friends, and we do that so that we as his people can be a blessing to the city that God has called us to here in Boise and the Treasure Valley. So we don't exist for our own sake. Redemption Hill doesn't exist to make sure that we have a good life. This is not a country club. This is not a place that exists for its own existence. We exist for our city. And so how do we do that? Well, we inspire people to surrender all of their lives to Jesus. This is our key starting point for everybody, is to say, Jesus is worth everything. He's worth your life, and you'll be transformed in every way by him. I want to challenge you to surrender your life to him. It starts with a single decision to say, I'm going to follow in the way of Jesus. And then it's a lifetime of decisions in learning and following Jesus. And we do that. And then we connect into these what we call micro-church, which are missional communities, people who live their lives together, who do worship, who get formed in the way of Jesus, and who live on mission together. And that happens in our homes throughout the week, and we share our lives together day in and day out. And then we empower communities of faith, these micro-church, to discover and obey their God-given mission. We all have individual callings, and our little communities of microchurch have places that God has placed us in the world that has things that need to be set right. And your little community, we're going to help you and encourage you to do that. And then the last piece is we engage every kind of evil in our city with prayerful action. You see, there is a spiritual force of darkness in our world that is leading people towards destruction. These spiritual forces are destroying families and people's lives. They present like homelessness and addiction and poverty. They look like broken families. They look like our neighborhoods struggling to connect with one another. They look like loneliness. They look like depression. They look like anxiety. And each of these evils present in their own way, and what we're called to do is engage them with prayerful action, which means that we say, God, what's our part in bringing the restoration of all things with our presence in the world? And how can we partner with you in that? That's what we do here at Redemption Hill. And that looks like what we call a decentralized network of Jesus followers who are working as these missionary teams to see Boise and the Treasure Valley saturated with the beauty, justice, and good news of Jesus. So let's break that down. We are a decentralized network. What that means is that you are not under the authority or control of this organization. You are sent out to be what God has called you to in the world. This is not a command and control structure where you wait for your orders from some centralized organization to go do it. We are a decentralized network where we say, go figure out what God's called you to do, and then come back to us and ask what resources and training and equipping you need to do what you're called to do. You see the difference? One is very centralized around an organization, and one is dispersed into our city. And we believe that that looks like each of us taking responsibility for the places God has called us to. And then that last piece, our goal and our mission and vision of this church is to see our city, our valley, saturated with the beauty, justice, and good news of Jesus. What we call this our kingdom ecosystem, these interlocking parts that support the mission and the organisms of the church in performing its key functions. And so let's look at some of the ways that we do that. When we look at beauty, we have these key parts that we do together. We join together in prayer. There's a prayer team that meets every week. We have an elders prayer time once a month. There's prayer after the service. Prayer is the way that we stop and spend time listening to the Father. We worship together. We pay attention and we declare the good news that God himself is reigning in heaven and his reign is coming to earth, and we participate in that each week through worship. We do that with our Wonder School is a picture of the beauty of God's kingdom coming in its fullness by being a light in our neighborhood. And so Wonder School is a picture of the beauty of Christ in a neighborhood that brings redemption, transformation, healing to families and to neighborhoods. And then we also do this through our Made for This sports and arts camps that we have done across the valley. I think there was almost 30 across the Treasure Valley this last year. It's a way that the taste of the kingdom of God, God's pleasure and delight in kids, in learning, and in exploring the created order and how we fit in God's created order. That happens as we pursue seeing the beauty of God made manifest in our world. The second is justice. What justice means is not criminal justice. It means God is setting all things right. The end of all creation, the end of the story of God is that all things will be set right. And so when we look at the evils that we see in the world, the struggles that people have, we say we're going to participate in setting those things right. Some of the key ways that we do that, we have a benevolence fund that supports families month in and month out. We get several requests every week, and we try to triage and care for those people as is needed. We have a new initiative under our Redemption Stories nonprofit called Care Portal Idaho, which is building response teams that care for families in need and in crisis across our foster care system and any family or person in need in our city. And we're going to be developing teams at churches and organizations across the valley under Care Portal Idaho. As well, we have howsyourneighbor.org, which is a website that helps everyday people support homelessness and the housing crisis in our city. We participate in Angel Tree, which is a ministry of prison fellowship that cares for families of the incarcerated. And under Care Portal, we're developing a partnership with Safe Families Idaho that provides respite care and support for families in the foster care system. We're looking at ways to bring the justice of God, setting things the way that they were meant to be here in the city. And the last is good news. This is the good news, the proclamation that God's kingdom is coming, and everybody can be a part of it, and all it takes is submitting your life to Christ and experiencing redemption. And we partner with a lot of different organizations to do that. We helped launch a church planting network called the Valley Network that has planted 80 churches across the last 8 years. We have our micro church. Each place that you guys go, you are good news to your neighbors. Now, it's a little bit far from here. I'm going to turn around here. Okay, we have international mission. We have partners across the world that are starting church planting movements across the Muslim-speaking world, both in Asia and in the Middle East that we partner with. We have our parachurch ministries that are missionaries to our students at the college at Boise State. We participate and partner with Athletes in Action and the Pavlishes, and we participate and partner with the Michalowskis who are reaching through InterVarsity at Boise State. We have a student ministry here that has been training and equipping high schoolers to start Discovery Bible Studies and micro churches on their high school campuses called, it's that 2 or more symbol there, 2 or more students, and they meet on Sunday nights and get training with Andrew, and there's some incredible things happening among that. We partner with Young Life to be missionaries to high school and middle school students across Boise. And then lastly, we focus on training and equipping people to follow in the way of Jesus through discipleship. That looks like huddles. These are the intentional environments where 4 to 7 people gather with a leader, commit to 2 or 3 years of training and learning how to teach other people how to walk with Jesus. We have our internship, which is our 5th to 7th grade catechism and preparation course for our young kids. And then we also have our Redemption Hill Kids Ministry. And when you look across this room, there's 45 kids downstairs that are preparing for our kids ministry that aren't in here with us right now. And it's an incredible ministry that's been happening the last 7 years. So all that together, we call this our kingdom ecosystem. It's interlocking parts that support the mission and the organisms of the church in performing its key functions. So we see Redemption Hill as a kingdom ecosystem, not an organization. We're not here for ourselves. We're not here to build our own kingdom. We're here to support the things that God is doing across our city. And we do that by supporting each of these things with training. We have people who have done all of these things and know how to do them, that train regularly with our people on how to lead mission, how to share the gospel, how to teach the way of Jesus, how to lead organizations, how to pursue justice, how to pursue beauty in our city. We do that through coaching. Many of you are saying, we need help figuring out how to be microchurch, and we partner with you in helping figure that out. We have administrative support that supports all of these ministries that is led through our staff team here. We have the finance folks that are leading those things and make sure that they happen. And we have a communications team that makes all those things happen. So this is who we are as Redemption Hill. And maybe you haven't been here when we've talked about this before, but we're not a normal church in that regard. We have a different structure, and it's this decentralized network. We're not just an organization. We are a partnership of community of people committed to the cause of Christ. And we do that built not on obligation. We don't do it because we feel shame if we don't participate, but rather we do it out of mutual love and sacrifice for the cause of Christ in our city. It's not just a religious business here to offer religious goods and services in exchange for people's attention or giving. Everybody who comes here, you're invited to be a part of the cause and kingdom of God. He has a place for you to play your particular role, and we want to help bring that to life in you. We want to support you in that. I'd like to say that we're a community of kingdom entrepreneurs. We measure impact and changed lives and disciples sent, rather than how many people are here joining us on Sunday mornings. Let me say that again. We measure impact, we measure changed lives, and we measure disciples sent, rather than who gathers here. Actually, we haven't counted who's here for the last 6.5 years. I have no idea how many people are here each given week, because that's not a part of our metric. I'm sure that drives some of you crazy because you'd like to see the charts and you'd like to see how they track over time, but that's not what we're measuring. What we rather measure is how many people have been through our huddles and have been discipled to be leaders. We measure how many people have been sent as missionaries to launch microchurch in new places. We have never been an organization that's been led by professional clergy, but rather missionaries, passionate about the mission of Christ to see the valley saturated with the beauty, justice, and good news of Jesus. And the way that we have funded that is that we have given support to these missionaries to free them as leaders and servants to build up the church. So the people who work here at Redemption Hill, they don't work here to serve you. Okay, let me repeat that. The people who serve as staff at Redemption Hill don't work here to serve you. In Ephesians 4, it says that God gave these apostles, prophets, evangelists, shepherds, and teachers to train you up and equip you to do the work of ministry. And so we are here to support you in what God has called you to do. And what we want to do is to continue to give them more time and attention to the shared work that we have as leaders. And if you look around, this room has grown. We don't count, but I know you feel it. This room has grown. There's probably a bunch of people you don't know in this room because this room has almost doubled over the last year and a half. And for that reason, everyone who has ever worked at Redemption Hill has been bivocational. That means that they have other work outside that supports their families. No one has ever worked at Redemption Hill full-time throughout our history. Here are the current staff that equip and lead our teams. We have Alyssa Statlander, who's right up here. She leads our communications at Redemption Hill, but she also supports the Valley Network. She supports our Boise Underground Kingdom ecosystem that supports micro churches across our valley. And she also helps lead as a volunteer with Redemption Hill Internship. And she works at a marketing company, and she teaches theater to kids so that she can pay her bills. These are the sort of passionate missionary leaders that work at our church. We have Andrew Green, who leads a nonprofit that supports a justice mission in Uganda called Ruja. Oh, I didn't want to get that wrong, Ruja. And also then leads our youth here at Redemption Hill. He's one of the pastors who's on staff, and he leads this 2 or more youth across the Boise Underground Network. And he's less than half-time here at Redemption Hill. We've got Grandma Robin, who every week she leads 55 kids downstairs. And she does it being paid for 11 hours a week of work. These are the sorts of missionary, passionate people that have been called to lead here. We've got Jesse Peck, who does admin for Redemption Hill and our Redemption Stories nonprofit and Wonder School and the Boise Underground, and she also owns a cleaning business to help pay the bills. We've got Jesse Horney, who leads our Wonder School preschool as a part-time thing, and then also does discipleship and pastoring here at Redemption Hill part-time. And then lastly, we have Malia and Clint, who have led worship at our community for over 7.5 years and have never been paid because they're passionate about the mission of what's happening around here. And just to round things out, I'm the 8th part-time staff, and I get paid for a day and a half of work a week to lead this organization. Now, I'm not telling you all of this so that you feel bad for any of them. They do it because they love it and they're passionate about the mission. They all do it because they're passionate about what they're doing. Now, could we have a couple of full-time people? Yeah, we could. But what that does is it weakens our organization. If we have a couple of part-time people, they'll never be able to do as much as 8 part-time passionate leaders would be able to do. Now, none of these people get benefits or retirement, and so the pay that they even get is less than what they would get at a secular job. We do this because we believe in the mission. We want a large team with lots of partners sharing the load. We want the ministry to be led by lay people and not professional ministers because we want all of you to feel like you are a part of what we're doing. Okay? That's a lot. It's 9:45 already. All right, a couple things before we go. First is this. We've got some things coming up in the next year. The biggest one is Grandma Robin is going to be retiring in 2025. And for those of you who don't know, that means a lot of your jobs are going to get a lot bigger over the next year. But it also means that we need to rethink and figure out what the next stage is for Redemption Kids and our ministry we have over 100 families who brought kids here over the last year. How are we going to serve those people by training up their kids in the way of Jesus? It's a huge thing. We're working on a job description. We're going to be figuring out what that looks like. But I want to invite all of you to pray with us as a team, that God would bring the right person. Maybe it's one of you. Maybe one of you is sitting there thinking, I may need to at least pursue and see if this is what God's calling me to, because you have a passion for the mission that we're talking about. But it's going to be a shift. Now, Grandma Robin isn't going anywhere. She's still my mom, and I still need her desperately to help me with things. So she's still going to be here. She's not done working. She's just done working, as a job. She's going to continue to do it because she's passionate about it. At the same time, we have been growing, and if the kids are in this room, we don't have enough room in this room right now. And we've got to figure out what it looks like for the next stage. And for us, that's not adding on more services, but it's rather multiplying and sending. And so we want to look at how do we increase the capacity of our hub as Redemption Hill? How do we increase the capacity of our team to gather and equip more people to be a part of this mission that God is doing? We want to build more kingdom ecosystem and infrastructure. This looks like sending church plants and training leaders and preparing micro church networks to start. And here's where I'm going to land today. I want to challenge you to give generously, not just to support a church that serves us, but rather give generously to support an expansive mission. This mission is that God's beauty, justice, and good news would take root in our lives and pour out of us as a community, spilling over into our neighborhoods, schools, and workplaces. We have important work to do in continuing this work. Next generation, the kids, those under 18, will continue to be our primary mission, to empower the next generation to lead and to be God's people. We're going to be increasing our investment in justice through Care Portal and partnerships with foster care agencies and housing initiatives. And we're going to be growing our team's capacity through more financial support so that they have more margin to lead in our organization. And so now that you know the mission, now that you know the challenges ahead of us, I want you to pray these next 2 weeks. God, what is a sacrificial offering look to you? That has nothing to do with me, and that's you and the Lord working through what that looks like and partnering together in this mission God has called us to.